Hi, my name is Dave. I'm your host. You're listening to The Last Podcast, where the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Hey, listen, if you just now found us, if it's your first time, I'm glad you found me. Welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope you continue to find tips, ideas, and value from listening to this podcast. Today, I want to talk about our identity and how there are things that we can do to find out our true identity. Everybody has a life story, and I believe it's predicated on what we do and who we are, our identity. Not the roles that we play or the many hats that we wear, but we go through life where as a brother, mother, father, sister, and so on and so forth. As a relationship, that is who we are within our relationship boundaries. And if we're a cop, a pastor, or a doctor, those are things that we do. They're not our identity, and it doesn't say who we are at our core. It just mentions the things that we've done or things that we do for a living, or the relationships we are in comparison to others. Or in contrast to others. So I would say that learning our identity and who we are will definitely help us understand ourselves on a much deeper level. Today I want to talk about how you can look at your identity and zero in what type of identity you fit in, or what type of identity you have, by exploring just 3 archetypes. And there are many archetypes. So what is archetype? I'm sorry. Archetype, that's a great question. Carl Gustav Jung pronounced or coined archetype as an universal inborn model of people, patterns, behaviors, or personalities that play a role in influencing our human behavior. Now, why is that important? Well, that's another great question that you're asking, and I'm happy you asked that. I'll be more than happy to answer it for you. It's only important to someone who wants to understand themselves on a much deeper level than they currently do now. And I was that type of person. I always wanted to know, who am I, why am I here, and so on and so forth. So I went on a journey to seek answers, and sometimes when we're seeking something, we wind up with more questions than answers. So I was one of those people who basically wanted to know why it's so important for someone to understand why we do the things that we do. It's also for the person who is interested in making a lasting change in their lives, with the understanding how our lives are influenced, and the choices and the behaviors that we make, and why we might gravitate towards certain situations in our lives, and why we gravitate to certain things in our lives. Now, this is also important for someone who wonders, what type of person am I and why? I believe we're going through different soul-searching questions to find out a lot of different answers about ourselves on a much deeper level. And it's important. Not only important, it's critical. If you're looking to make lasting change in your life, I believe that trying to find out everything about yourself is critical. I mean, you got to look at your personalities. You got to look at what you've been through, and you not only look at how you are acting today, but you got to go way back as when you were a little child, that all the things that you've done, all the things you've experienced, because those experiences make up the sum of who you are now. But guess what? All those things is not permanent. You can change so many things about yourself, but you got to know how. You got to understand yourself on a much deeper level. And that's why I'm talking about archetypes. And I believe when we understand ourselves on a much deeper level, we're able to make changes and lasting changes that will catapult us to any position in life that we so desire. So, archetype is at the core of our being, our personality that influences our basic nature and life. For instance, and I'm going to give you an example here. For instance, let's just say, and I'm not talking about, when I say this, I'm not talking about the person or what they do, but I'm talking about their personality. Let's just say you have a caregiver personality, and you might be more apt to protect or rescue others. Those are the things that we're talking about, and how you can look at certain instances in your own life, and you can look at the correlation and what they might mean for you. There are several different archetypes, but I'm only going to mention 3 out of the shortness of this show. So, but if you want to learn about archetypes, there are so many different resources online where you can learn more about the different focuses of archetype, like in art, objects, or different concepts. But to keep things simple today, I'm only going to talk about 3 archetypes, and I also want you to know that you might find yourselves in all, like I took personally a 12-step archetype study for myself, and there are 12 steps, and I believe that when you do all 12, you'll see yourself in many different areas of all 12. But the goal is to find out where you fit the most, or where you identify the most, and see yourself at. Because you may, in all reality, you may see yourself in a little bit of yourself in all 12. Or if you're looking at archetypes that deal with more than 12, maybe 24, you might see yourself a little of yourself in all 24 archetypes. But the key, and to find out where you truly believe or belong or identify with, is your archetype that you identify with the most. All right. So, and I also want you to know that your archetype is not static. It also changes as you're, like, in the different phases of your life. Like when you were a kid, your archetype could have been something different, and then as an adult. So your archetypes are not static. They are also fluid, and they change with the various stages of your life. So, like I said, all these things are not static. So I just want you to keep that in mind. The first archetype I'm going to talk about is, let's talk about the hero. Remind you, I went through 12. So, and I identified with practically all 12. But what I found the most is I identified with one of them the most. So we're going to go with the first one, which is hero. The first archetype that we're going to talk about is hero. And the life of a hero is about proving one's worth, their courage, their tenacity in life. So they probably would fear, because there's 4 things within that archetype: life, fear, strength, and weakness, right? So what they might fear is being weak, vulnerability. And I'm quite sure everybody can identify at some point in life of being weak. You know, nobody wants to really show vulnerability, especially online. They want to show all the glory, all the hype, and everything else, but vulnerability, that's we're getting a little too personal, right? So that's what they fear. One of their strengths their strength is competence, courage, boundaries. You know, these people here, they have the courage, and that's why they're identify as a hero because they're courageous, right? They're going out and they're doing things that a non-hero would do. So their strength is competence, courage, and boundaries. But they also have weakness as well. And it's arrogance. It's always battling, attract people that need saving. So that's basically what a hero identity falls around. And they may also be known as a warrior or the fearless one. But I believe that that is a little bit in everybody. I believe everybody has a little bit of hero in them. But we're talking about if that hero is like, if you put it on percentages, do you identify at 90% heroism, or do you identify as 20%? So if you identify as 90, you know that your identity is that of a hero. All right. So the second one I want to talk about, of course, is, and I'm gonna tell you this, being transparent, I was definitely a dreamer, because that's the name of the second archetype I want to talk about, is the dreamer. The dreamer wants to live life with freedom and happiness, and they want to live their lives in a way where everything is freedom. Everything is happiness, and that's the dreamer. They are more optimistic than most other people, right? But what do the dreamer fear? They fear being punished unfairly, being bad, or being wrong. Now, as a dreamer, I identify with being a dreamer, and I've also been called a dreamer. So I understand, and yes, when I go to this next one, it's one of the strengths is their faith, their optimism. But one of the weaknesses is being naive and being defensive. Now, I've been called all those things. I'm not lying. I've been called all those things. Am I happy to be a dreamer? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you something. I identify with being a dreamer, but yes, do I identify with being a dreamer 50%, 90%? Well, that's on me to know, right? But you need to find out if you identify as a dreamer, and what percentage of that is when you look at archetypes, where do you fit in the most? That's what you have to look at. And as a dreamer, we're also known, or they are also known, as innocent, romantic, utopian, and naive. So I've been a dreamer. I've been called a dreamer several times. And in my life, I continue to dream. In my life, I continue to be optimistic, even in the midst of adversity. Yeah, I'm human. Times get me down. I might get a little down and start to see things wrong, especially depending on who you're around. If you are around a lot of people that see the glass half empty all the time, then you're probably going to wind up start seeing the glass a little halfway empty as well, instead of saying halfway full. So I was the type of person who saw the glass halfway full, and how could I fill it up more? So you have to figure out where you belong in your own archetype, and where do you fit, or where is your percentage in all of the archetypes that you will probably check and figure out where you belong and where your own identity stands. The third and last one that I'm going to talk about is sage. The sage. For the sage, life is about seeking the truth and growth. So If you find yourself always trying to seek the truth and always trying to grow, maybe you're the sage. Maybe you identify with that. And believe it or not, I identify with this as well. I'm always trying to seek truth, and I'm always trying to grow. So I can identify. Now, do I identify that on a large level? Maybe not, but still in all, I can see myself being identifying with the sage as well. So can you see yourself identifying as the sage, always seeking truth and always trying to grow? Now, what the sage fears, that personality fears, they fear ignorance. They fear being duped or misled or being misled, right? So what is one of their strengths? One of their strengths is self-reflection, intellect, seeking knowledge. Yeah, that's why I think I can identify with the sage. But what are some of their weaknesses? Studying to excess with no action and overanalyzing. So they might also be known as the philosopher, advisor, the thinker, the teacher. So that's why I said I know I can identify with the sage, but am I at 95% or 75% of the sage? Nah, not really. But I identify with it. Where do you identify? So I've already gone a little longer than what I wanted to do in this podcast, but here's what I would tell you. I had a 12-step identifying chart to help me figure out where I belong and what my identity identify with. If you are looking to get that same chart that I went through, just hit me up. I'll be more than happy to send it to you. And if you are interested in learning more, hey, you can still hit me up and we could talk further, and we'll definitely get you to do things like I see and like other people and thousands of others have changing their lives and have changed their lives and are in the process of changing their lives right now as while I'm talking. So I have some ideas, and we could put ideas together and see how they may flow, and we might see if we could be a good fit for one another, and we can definitely be thinkers. We could be teachers. We could be advisors. We could be philosophers. That's the sage. I'm only joking with you, but all jokes aside, if you are looking to get the entire 12 steps of all the archetypes, I do have it available, and upon request I'll send it to you. So again, my name is Dave, and you're listening to the last podcast where the first shall be last and the last shall be first. It's my pleasure to always be here and provide content that can actually help you move into a direction in your own life where you can make lasting changes, or even think about how you might apply what we're talking about here into your own lives, and look things up for yourself where you can make lasting change that will definitely help you in your own life. Well, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and tell your family, friends, co-workers, and associates about this podcast. I really appreciate it. And don't forget, Poetry Friday is on Friday. I'll be back here with a brand new poem. I thank you for listening. God bless you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.